Hello and welcome to the Sunday Times Culture Show. I'm Makita Oliver.
And I'm Grant Tucker, and we've got a fantastic show for you today.
Damon Albarn's latest album, The Nearer the Fountain, More Pure the Stream Flows, is out next month. Damon, we hear you. Jonathan Dean travelled to Iceland to meet the original Don of Britpop, turned orchestral composer, and explore the rugged landscape which inspired it. He'll be here to tell us everything about it.
And as it's Halloween week, we'll be looking at horror. Is the genre having a renaissance? Can a good horror film tell us something about society? We'll find out. But first, the Times TV editor, James Jackson, is here to tell us what to watch and what to swerve this week.
James, welcome to our home of culture.
Lovely to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So Monday saw the first episode of Stephen Merchant's new comedy, The Outlaws, on BBC One. Filled with typical Merchant mischief and some wonderful Bristolian flair. Was that good? No. The 6-part series follows a group of strangers thrown together through community service.
During clean-up duty, if you find a deceased animal over 10 kilos, do not touch it. That is the council's business. Anything under 10 kilos, vermin, cats, a small dog, that is yours.
Can we keep it?
No, you may not. Now, you may be wondering about feces.
You read my mind.
If you find human feces, do not touch it. You may handle other species' feces.
That's a good line. Is it as funny as that, James, though, all throughout?
No, it's
Okay.
not as funny as that. I mean, that's not to say it's not very good. I mean, my initial reaction was that it's not quite what I expected, because I thought it was going to be that kind of out-and-out cringe comedy all the way through, being from Stephen Merchant. So, yeah, when it had a kind of more gritty, dramatic side to it, I was a little bit wrong-footed at first, but I've actually watched the first episode again, and knowing what to expect, I enjoyed it a whole lot more. I could just sit back and just really enjoy the performances, of which there were many fine performances.
And can we just talk a little bit about Christopher Walken?
What is he doing there?
What is he in this the show on the
Absolutely. I mean,
BBC?
that small matter of Christopher Walken being Christopher Walken. Right. He's really kind of hamming it up to the max, I suppose. It's like he's doing an impersonation of himself almost. He is just one of this ensemble of characters who are thrown together on this building site to do community service. And all the comedy really comes on the building site as they have this kind of bickery banter. We get to know them there, and then we get to see their home lives, and that's where the kind of drama comes into it.
I thought the first episode let it down a bit, but the second episode, I was really laughing out loud. I think they got the mix between drama and comedy right then, James.
Yes, I'd agree with that. It gets better. I mean, it's definitely one to stick with. I have faith in Stephen Merchant, and yeah, I'm sure it will come clear how that's going to mesh with it.
I certainly have faith in Stephen Merchant, big time.
Definitely. Colin in Black and White tells the story of American footballer and activist Colin Kaepernick and his early life as a black teenager in a white family. Colin narrates, and his younger self is played brilliantly by 18-year-old Jaden Michael.
Left. Left.
One of the first things I learned when I got to work with Roger Theater was that I had a lot to learn.
Right. What happened, Kaepernick? Throw that with your purse?
No, Coach, I just wasn't ready.
Don't care. Get it right or get out. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't even be with this group. You've got the arms of a malnourished infant. Go join the baby squad.
Coach!
Baby squad, now.
Colin in Black and White, what did you think? Did you enjoy it?
I did. I think this is certainly an innovatively told drama. I was assuming it was going to be about Colin Kaepernick's taking the knee in 2016 and, the culture war that ignited. I mean, that's what he's famous for around the world. But actually, it's about his teenage years, as we saw there. But what's innovative is the way it's told, because framing the dramatised scenes of the young Colin Kaepernick facing these various challenges at high school is Colin Kaepernick himself talking directly to camera in what I felt was like a TED talk in racial injustice, whether that's systematic, casual, or accidental. And he's breaking the fourth wall. He's walking through these scenes of his life. So, you know, it's quite a clever device to pack a lot of information in.
I thought it was not only entertaining, but really informative for me. The kind of stuff around the politics of black people's hair in America was just utterly fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, that is such a for a male athlete to discuss something like hair, and you know, me as a black woman, I know what it's like to have transitional hairstyles, and you're on telly and and it's public. Why are you trying to figure yourself out? So I loved that he used this space to talk about something like that. It's quite unexpected.
Absolutely. But yeah, but then for the large part, it is actually these sort of dramatised scenes of him as a teenager, where he had white adoptive parents. The interactions between parents and their teenage son and how they try to relate to him, and they are very loving and supportive, but even they can't help but be a bit tone deaf to various situations and challenges that he finds himself in. The kind of audience who will probably respond to this most, I think, maybe a younger adult audience, and I think, you know, in that respect, it's got really healthy messages, you know, all about trust your power and life's too short to be living someone else's dream
I'm
and all
not
that
young, I'll take
air
those.
punching
Trust
stuff.
Your power. Life's
Exactly.
too short. Woo!
Good mottos.
Thank you so much, James.
Now we've got a first look at Sunday's Culture magazine. It includes Jonathan's interview with Damon Albarn, and ahead of what would have been David Bowie's 75th birthday, his biographer Dylan Jones reminisces with Nile Rodgers, Boy George and Bob Geldof about the man they all knew and loved. And there's some brilliant anecdotes. Look out for the one with the shepherd's pie.
And David Bowie.
Yeah.
Okay. And Rebecca Hall, director of new Netflix film Passing, explores the parallels in her own family history. In the film, which is an adaptation of Nella Larson's 1929 novel, a mixed-race woman, Claire Kendry, passes as white, and Rebecca herself discovered her own grandfather, a former enslaved person, did the same thing. In the article, she examines society's expectations and asks why so many mixed-race people over the years choose to deny their heritage. What a story.
Well, you can read that and Dylan Jones's Bowie piece in this week's Sunday Times Culture magazine.
Now we're joined by Jonathan Dean, who's been on a really quite exciting holiday with an icon of British music. Jonathan, tell us all about getting the call from Damon Albarn to join him on holiday.
Yes, well, we were meant to be meeting in London, and then Damon suggested that we went to Iceland instead. And I thought the shop's great, but then he said it was the country, so we went there.
Yeah.
And it was lovely.
Yeah.
If not a bit rainy.
A friend of mine, Mark Cardinal, came to me one evening and said, "Is there anything you'd like to do? Anything?" And I said, "Yeah, there really is something I'd love to do. I'd love to bring some orchestral musicians up to Iceland." So yeah, I had like 15 musicians in this room. I'd give them a very sort of loose harmonic plan. Violas would be playing the sort of gentle movement of the sea, and the trombones and the low brass would be just playing the fog. Within all of those improvisations, there were little fragments like that, and I kind of sort of took a lot of those things and started to sort of turn them into complete songs.
I mean, it just does look beautiful over there.
It's gorgeous, yeah. It feels like a strangely ethereal place.
I feel like there's probably magic in Iceland.
Certainly. Well, now, Damon's upcoming album, The Nearer the Fountain, More Pure the Stream Flows, is out next month. How much of it was actually inspired by Iceland?
A lot, because he got a bunch of musicians out to his house, because it's got a lovely studio that looks out to the sea, where they would look at the changing climate and the birds and the mountains and be inspired and do sort of like fancy jamming. And he knows, I think everyone knows everyone. Like he knows he's met Bjork a few times.
Of course.
That
If
sort
you're in
of
Iceland,
thing.
you're going to see Bjork down the road.
Everybody knows Bjork in Iceland. Now, you spent a lot of time with him and you saw his process up close. What's he kind of like as a songwriter?
Thing is, like, this thing about Damon, he's done so much different stuff. So for this, it was very much sits at a piano, inspired, like gets classical stuff, you know, but he'll do something for gorillas, it's completely different. It's a collaborative thing. It's obviously a lot more party than the music that we saw then. So he's got best of both worlds about how to kind of become a pop star as you get into your 50s and 60s.
So you're actually a Damon fan. Do you get emotional when you're there, sat with him in his living room playing?
No, I'm very professional.
It's quite fun though, isn't it?
It's a lot of fun, to be honest. No, I think this was one of the ones where you kind of go, oh, hang on, I'm like, you know, just in Damon's house, spying up his breakfast cereals.
It's totally what I do.
Exactly, yeah.
What cereal does he eat?
Cocoa Pops.
No way!
Gosh, we got all the showbiz tips here.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jonathan, but you're going to stay because we're going to talk about horror, and you like that stuff.
Sure.
Don't you? So with Halloween just around the corner, we had to look at horror. The first in the genre was George Méliès's The Haunted Castle, released in 1896. But Hitchcock's Psycho was the first big film, taking $32 million at the box office. That was in 1960. That's over £200 million in today's money.
And it set the stage for the slashers, and a familiar narrative was played out through the decades, most notably in Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Halloween. One where the final girl, a desirable young female lead, is persecuted throughout the film, witnessing her co-stars being brutally massacred, but survives. Largely, it seems, because of her virginal innocence and refusal to indulge in sex, drugs, or alcohol.
Okay. Those traditions have always been challenged by directors such as Stanley Kubrick and Ridley Scott. And there's a new wave of disruptors. In 2011's You're Next, the final girl is more than equipped to fight back. It's like horror Home Alone, okay? She booby traps the house and takes down the murderers. It's wonderful. 2017's Get Out put a black male lead in the final character role, and films like Midsummer, Hereditary, The Witch, and Candyman are all part of a new wave of more thoughtful horror, one that's drawing bigger and bigger audiences.
That's right, horror's on the up. 2020 saw a huge jump in popularity as it took 18% of box office share, up from just 7% in 2019. But why did we want to watch horror while our lives were being turned upside down by the pandemic? Now, the theory goes like this. Horror, with its intense but manufactured terror, provides an outlet for our anxiety. Our emotions are heightened, but there's comfort too, because the horrors on screen aren't real. As audiences grow, the genre's stepping up to the plate. Gone are the days of comical blood spurts and ghoulish abandoned houses. Today's films are beautifully crafted works of psychological intrigue. Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho, out today, pairs rich cinematography with a carefully curated soundtrack.
Well, hello there.
The bartender said I should get to know the handsome fella standing next to Cilla Black.
You should. And you are?
The next, Cilla Black.
Are you now?
Jonathan, why do we love horror so much?
I think it's a couple of things. I think it's a little bit like going on a roller coaster at a theme park. You're going down a terrible kind of oblivion drop, and you're terrified. And there's that exhilaration. It's an adrenaline rush, and then suddenly it's over and you're fine. But then also, I think, to be honest, it's just there's a sense which sounds really glib, but it's like however bad your life is, it's not as bad as what's happening to the people on screen.
It really is. How terrible we all are.
So we just give a quick overview there, but how has the genre changed over the years?
I think it ebbs and flows, like so many things. You kind of go through these thematic shifts. So like you had torture porn, for want of a better word, which was the Saw and the Hostels and stuff like that 15 or 20 years ago. That was full-on gore. Then after that, you had Blair Witch, you had Paranormal Activity, which was terrifying you in settings that you are normally in a very kind of like handheld camera way. So again, it took you closer to where you are. And then, as you said, this resurgence of the really smart idea of allegorical horror, whether it's Get Out or Us, which is actually the follow-up from Jordan Peele, which they take topics that people talk about, whether race or society, they put them in a horror setting. And in that way, like the recent Candyman, I didn't know, for example, when I first watched Candyman, the first Candyman in the 90s, I didn't know that it was about gentrification and sort of white neighbourhoods take over black neighbourhoods and people moving on, which is what the new one is kind of expands on even more. And then afterwards you go, oh yeah, that's actually about that. And that's really smart. It's the layered stuff that I think people really appreciate.
Has he convinced you?
No, I was just thinking, I hate Candyman. It's so scary. So horror is evolving.
It's honing in on the stuff that made it good in the first place.
I never really thought about it like this. I've never seen the layers of horror.
What does that tell us about the human psyche, though, that we as people like being scared, apart from Makita?
I think it's release. I think it's going, if like going too fast in a car, it's like getting a bit drunk or too drunk. You want to sort of push yourself to limits that aren't human. You want to feel a bit dangerous, and watching a film made by someone else in a seat at home, to some people that's dangerous.
Living recklessly. Yeah, taking oneself to the edge.
Yeah, exactly. It's pushing yourself to a level that you're not normally at.
Yeah, that's why I don't like it.
Yeah.
Jonathan, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
That's all we've got time for this week, but we'll be back same time next week. And Jonathan will be back to run down all the must-see film and TV.
And ahead of the release of Spencer, we'll be talking about our endless fascination with royalty on screen.
I am so fascinated.
What with the royals?
Yeah,
yeah,
love
me
it.
too. Even Channel 5 documentaries, I watch those as well. Don't forget to continue on this adventure with us by sharing, liking, subscribing, or just talk about the show with the people you know and love in real life.
But till next week, goodbye.
Goodbye.